Kyle here from allmeterviews.blogspot.com. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. The big albums of the year from 2022 list. It's hardly, something that will be definitive for months or even years, I'm sure. I've been, going back and reviewing a lot of albums and checking out some albums I didn't get to check out fully. And, some of this stuff. But I'll say this about this year. I mean, to summarize 2022 is that there were a lot of my favorite bands that put out albums, and I'm gonna write this up. Um, and a lot of them ended up being good albums, but not a lot of them end up being like they didn't become addictive. And part of it is maybe, I've said this many times, unfair to compare these albums to their past work or even recent albums. It's it's the way it goes, as an artist. That's kind of the way that it's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. And so, all your work's going to be compared to your past work. It's just kind of the way it works. And then around the time, it's also compared to what else came out around the same, what was released around the same time. So to go through this, so I have a list of a bunch of them that I haven't heard that you can see there. Black Map, Trigonheim Messiah. I like a lot of his stuff, but I've never been obsessed with it. The new Jethro Tull, and I've got a few different lists of there were a couple other records from King Gizzard I didn't even include on here. One of them's called Changes, I think. So they had like 5 or 6 records that came out. Of course, I take my King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard in small doses. James LaBrie's album, Beautiful Shade of Grey. The new Motorcycle album. Motorcycle has like a dozen albums. I only know like 2 of them. And Ryo Okamoto. That album I probably have slept on too long. Some of the other records on my list, I probably should listen to because supposedly it's very much like Spock's Beard, although it's without Neil. But it has Ted Leonard, I guess, singing. So it's basically like a Spock's Beard album, just not in name. The Punch Brothers record, Pattern Seeking Animal. Speaking of Ted Leonard, I think it's Ted Leonard. Well, maybe not. Was it? I don't know. I know it's Neil Morrison, the guy from Haken, and then might be, I forget. Anyway, maybe it was Nick, not Ted Leonard. Nick DiVirgilio. That record's, I guess, singer-songwriter-esque, I guess. The new Russian Circles, Gnosis, kind of jumped ship on Russian Circles a long time ago. Antonio Sanchez, this album has a Kimber on a song, I guess. Crippled Black Phoenix and the Midnight. And then these are the reissues, the Dredge Leitmotif 20th anniversary that I showed videos for all this stuff. The Shaming of the True vinyl from Kevin Gilbert and Toy Matinee's vinyl reissue. So anyway, the EPs of the year, well, you have Lines in the Sky, and they do a cover of a Police song, Synchronicity on that even. Is it Synchronicity? Yeah. And I think they did like a mashup of Synchronicity and Synchronicity too, but at some point. Bjorn Reese, his full length I like better than the EP, but it's all right. I always think of Pink Floyd with that, a fleeting glimpse. Oldster, this is Josh Banash of Kiss Kiss and Vuvuzela on his solo career. This is a new project, The Sun Destroyers. I don't know if we're going to get full length, but it's very good psychedelic. It's probably the most psychedelic thing he's ever done, actually, in some ways. The Licorice Quartet, Threesome Volume 3, that turned out to the last thing they ever released, probably. Which I like. And then Typhoon, the Underground Complex #1. I'm really liking that. That's the best EP of the year. All right, so I usually like to have the top at the best, but I'll do a countdown. So the LPs, you have Chrome Canyon, Director, number 54, Persephone, Metonai, number 53, Josh Rouse, Going Places, number 52. There's a couple songs on there I liked, but overall, he's kind of in every other record. It's like one record's good, one record's not as good. Josh Rouse, but favorite of my wife's, of course. Seen him live now like 6 or 7 times. There's one song on here that probably is a highlight. It's called Hollow Moon. It's a nice ballad, very kind of dreamy. Anyway, Courtney Swain of Bent Knee, Silver Lining. Okay, that's number 51. Then Kinsler Marcia, the Jim Matheos new project, number 50. The Gathering, Beautiful Distortion, number 49. Marathon, the new project from some of the guys, not project from some of the same guys in 22. Unseen Color, number 48. Skeleton Staff, who just literally put their new record out yesterday on Sunday. Malapropism, the first record I think they've released at least a few years. first one I've checked out since like 2016. I like some of it. Some of it's a little bit like XTC. Some of it's more ballady. I mean, they're kind of a power pop band from down under, but they're not. That's hard. That's putting it vaguely. They use a lot of electronic textures and stuff. They're quirky too. So anyway, Block Party's Alpha Games number 46, first record from them first record from them in a while. It's the second record I believe that features or that includes the services of Justin Harris of Phenomena. Dan Moxon of Ben Sinister's second solo record, All My Friends. I like about half of this record. It's still singer-songwriter to an extent, although it's more, I don't know, you call it Americana or playful at times than the previous record. The previous record was very loungy, so, you know, it's not Ben Sinister, it's not really prog, but it's still there's some good songs on it. Ty Tabor of King's X, new album Shades, also some decent songs on it. Not as good as the new King's X, but still, that's generally been the case with King's X members. The new Mars Volta, the first Mars Volta album in 10 years, self-titled, number 43. I'm not crazy about it. It's not really the kind of stuff that I'm, beyond even not being prog, it's a little more Latin, I guess, but it's still more poppy and more, kind of the songs don't even sound like they're finished. There's a couple of tracks. The first single, I think it's the first or second song I liked. Other than that, I mean, I just kind of went through it a couple times. Black Light Shine, they did the video for. Maybe this album will prove to be better over time, but to me, it's almost like Octahedron, but it's not as adventurous. But whatever, it's better to have something from them than never have anything again, I guess. Grimace's new album, Abandonic, the band from Romania that I've liked for a number of years, that's kind of like ours. I kind of got lost in this record a little bit, unfortunately. This is maybe the first record from them I didn't get attached to. I've liked all their other records, for the most part. But anyway, Bandonic from number 42. Bubble Mass new album, local prog rock band from here that's very experimental and can compare to the likes of Zappa or Gentle Giant. Turf Ascension, the second album they've done in 5 years, which is an accomplishment compared to the large gap between the previous record and their debut album, Edit Peptide and Such Fine Particles of the Universe. But I like it. There's only like 3 or 4 tracks on this. I don't know if it's the title track. What is it? Yeah. It's like, I've listened to it. I bought it. I really like the guys. I'm just, because I know them personally, especially Kai. But it's just, they're definitely a band that, you really have to kind of find your spots with. And sometimes it just gets lost in the shuffle of a lot of other music for me and other priorities. But still it's great to have them continue to have another record. And I don't know if we're going to get a 5th album from them at some point, but I know that people in the prog scene are really happy that we've been able to see more music from them, because for the longest time I didn't think we were ever going to get another record, but they never broke up. Anyway, number 40, Black Midi's Hellfire. I like the real busy moments, the kind of avant-garde moments. I think there's another one of those, the Brixton scene, which albums that got hyped up even more than this year, and it didn't even make my list for a reason. So this album I like more than that. But anyway, number 39, 0 Hours, Agenda 21, their first record in 14 years, with Eric Roswell on vocals. Now it's a different lineup other than Jason Tipton from their previous records, but bringing Eric Roswell back meant a lot to me. I like it. I'm getting kind of a similar feel to like what I felt like listening to some of the Transatlantic records past Bridge Across Forever. Like, I kind of feel like I've heard some of this before, but I don't know. It was a bit of a chore to get through at times, but then I'd notice little moments, and so when I went, I think it's on Spotify, and I heard it about half the songs, like 4 or 5 songs, but it's prog metal, it's technical at times, it's very intense, it's similar to their previous records. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking, well, they need Eric Roswell back, I like him better than the other singers they had, because he doesn't sound exactly like Jeff Tate, but I don't know. This record I think I need more time to give more time to, but as a whole, it was still really good to see them have a new record out. Number 38, Muse, Will of the People. It's shorter, it's sort of a callback to some of their previous styles. but it's still kind of over the top at points to me to get attached to it. I guess I've become more of an early Muse fan. I always find the records past Black Holes and Revelations, it's like there's songs I like, and then the records I don't listen to as a whole, but it's a shorter record. Of course, there's the one song that's they're considering, it's death metal or something like that, and I forget which one it is. The Effers, the last track, or there's one other track on here, but I've only listened to this album like 3 times. But it's short. It's only 37 minutes. So, anyway, so moving on. Number 37, we got A to Z, the other project that's Fates Warning related, not Kings or Messiah, but this is Ray Alderman reuniting with Mark Zonder. I'm not sure if Joey Vera is the bass player on this. No, it isn't. It's just Zonder. It's Bino and Jude Walters. Maybe Joey Kings or Messiah, but we got the kitty coming in. I like this, but again, it's not. I don't know. It's not, for lack of a better word, it doesn't sound like the prog metal that I like, but they may as well call it Fates Warning then. They're not going to call it Fates Warning without Jim Matheos, but I don't know. I'm again, it's another record a lot of people loved. A few of the early singles I liked. It's great to hear Mark Zonder playing more traditional hard rock metal, I guess, compared to some of the stuff he's done. But it's still a record that I guess I didn't get attached to at this point, but as much as I thought. So anyway, number 36, Marketa Arglova, the Lila record, her first record in like 5 or 6 years. Also kind of like what I loved her last 2 records. I kind of, wasn't attached to it. I liked moments on them. But it was a little more sleepy than some of the other records. I don't know. But part of it was when I was listening to it, I guess. I don't know. Number 35, Takis, the new project from Jonas Bear of Mew, the singer of Mew, and I forget who the other guy, the gentleman, Tobias Wilner. This is a synth-pop record, and kind of with some dreamy, almost post-rock moments. It's not that consistent. It's kind of uneven. But the best tracks, including the last track, is very dreamy at points. What is it? Sometimes We Do. I wrote a thumbs up on some. Sounds like a huge dreamy. Yeah, it's like a remix of another song. But I like this. I'm wondering what Takis is going to do next. I will listen to this again for sure. But it's kind of spotty. The songs on Spotify I liked are really the ones I probably will just return to mostly. Anyway, Snarky Puppy's new album, Empire Central, which I think is almost entirely, if not entirely, live. And there's a number of, showstoppers on here. They're just kind of a band that, they're really known as a live band, and most of the recordings that are released are live albums too. But it gets to be kind of much, in that they kind of meander at points, but you kind of wait for the really cool, funky sections and stuff like that. If I'm naming favorites, I forget which one it was. I think it was Bet. The song Bet? Yeah. There were a few others. Free Fall, Coney Bear. I mean, it's a long record. It's like, I don't know, it's like over an hour. This one song is 9 minutes here, this RL's. So, I mean, it's like you're listening to a Snarky Puppy concert, really. And so that's kind of why it's sort of a mood album for me. But for what it is, it's still pretty good. It's just not, I wouldn't put it up in Cult of Vultures category, some of the other records I've heard from them anyway. Number 33, Jenny Lee from Warpaint's album Heart Tax. This isn't as good as Warpaint, but it's still very dreamy, and it's a little more funky at times. She's the bass player, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, from Warpaint. I should know this by heart, but oops, this new laptop of mine, it's got some weird features. But yeah, if you know Warpaint and you haven't listened to Jenny Lee's new solo album, Heart Tax, definitely worth checking out. Number 33. Number 32, Bjorn Reese is Everything to Everyone. Kind of a continuation. Bjorn Reese is this guitarist from the band, is it Airbag? I think it's Airbag. He's with Airbag, I believe. Yeah. And I'm guilty of not listening to that much Airbag, but I've listened to I'll go back there. I've listened to some of his other records. post the year, was it Storms Coming, the last one, and then Forever Comes to an End. It's very Pink Floydy. This new album, Everything to Everyone, very textured. He's the guitarist and singer, and he has that kind of somber, almost, I would call it post rock or depressing kind of voice. It's very kind of melancholy. I overuse the word melancholy, but it's on that vein. It's a good record. Not fantastic, but still good. Anyway, number 32, number 31, Cats in Space, Kickstart the Sun. This band really is weird. I always expect not to get bored by them. I never do. They're very retro sounding, very like 70s kind of melodic, almost pomp rock in a way. And they have little prog elements in them, but they're very retro sounding. But they've got a nice catalog. This is just a continuation, and I'm just like, I'll listen to it and I don't get bored. I keep on thinking, I can't listen to this. And I've listened to it like 5 times, and it's every time it's like that song, like that little moment, little bit. I mean, it's not like amazing, but it's still really good. It's a fun, upbeat record. I don't know if it's an album about going into space and stuff like that. A lot of their albums, hence the name Cats in Space. So if you've never heard of them, they're worth checking out. If you like, I don't know who I'd compare them to. That new thing that Mike Portnoy played on is kind of like that. Or who's the band? The Night Flight Orchestra. They're kind of like them too, in that sort of retro 70s hard rock vein, with little prog and psych tendencies. Anyway. Number 30, the Barnum Reserve Designs. This is the first album from the Barnum Reserve in like 5 years. I think it's only on Spotify and like 1 or 2 other sites. It's not on YouTube. It's not. It's hard to find, but they're a band that I've been into. I've liked for a number of years, but the last record I kind of thought was a little lackluster. This album, the first like half of it is really good. Like, this isn't even on Rate Your Music, but I want to say there's at least 4 or 5 tracks. The first half of it, very textured. They're using a lot more synths and stuff like that. The vocalist is very distinct, but they're a band that I can listen to almost in small doses. I've never been able to like get myself attached fully to one full record, but it's like, that song's good, that song's good. They had a few EPs a little bit like that too. Anyway, they're a British band. They're from England or maybe Scotland. But it hasn't even been, it's been so under the radar, it hasn't even been added on Rate Your Music. Yeah, see, you don't even know a lot of information on their bio. Alright, so number 29, Sound and Shape, Disaster Machine. This first album from Sound and Shape I've liked in a number of years. I've liked more. And they opened for King's X recently for at least 1 or 2 shows. Kind of your progressive art rock, alt-prog style. Sort of not in the jam band style, but they're also kind of known as a live band to an extent. But the vocalist sounds like some vocalists from jam bands though. But I like this album more than I expected. I have only listened to it a few times, but this is a little better than their previous records. I didn't even tag them. But anyway, Sound and Shape, Disaster Machine, number 29. Number 28, the new Tears for Fears album. I really enjoy the title track. The rest of the album, it's very dreamy at points. It's kind of almost new agey. I remember getting that impression initially. I don't know if I haven't really gone back to it since really those first couple weeks it came out. I should go back to it again. I know a lot of people were in awe of it. I thought this album was going to be like a really big deal. Like it would be in my top 5. It would be a record I'd be returning to a lot, but they did a couple videos for it. I think it was Break the Man. I think you get more Kurt than Roland on this, and that's part of what impacted my sort of attachment to it. I would say that like Peter Gabriel, the track though is among the best Tears for Fears songs ever, for sure. It's really dreamy, and that thing they released in 2021, and I was like, wow, I can't wait to hear this. So, and it was a long time in making. This was like 18 years. Like 2004's last record, what was it? Everybody Loves a Happy Ending, I think it was. Anyway, number 27, King Gizzard and the Wizard, the one record I did listen from them, Omnium Gatherum, which is a fun, energetic, at points sort of thrashy and proggy record. The production I don't love on it, which is a common trait of King Gizzard. I just always struggle with the production. They have so many records. Again, they released like 4 of the records this year, but this is the one I kind of said I'll listen to one of your records, and probably got the most attention. But yeah, I know people are going to probably have this much higher than I do. But at 27, at least it says something. It's probably the first King Gizzard Wizard album I've enjoyed more since Polygon Wonderland, which I didn't even listen to the year it came out. Number 26, Long Distance Calling Eraser. I remember liking this, and then I struggled to like get through it because I was just always getting interrupted. But Long Distance Calling are a band that generally even their worst records, I'll still enjoy a lot of the music on. So there's not I think there's some, if I remember correctly, there's a lot of samples on this. I mean, you want to accuse me of not remembering all this? I didn't write notes down for all these albums. But and that was the other thing is it's 9 tracks. The title track was the one that stood out to me the most. But they're a prolific band, and it's like their record. I remember it came out, and it's got a weird title, like very kind of fit like a very depressing tone. I meant to go back to it. How do we want to live? It was very much like the end of the world kind of thing, or But yeah, and from a rating standpoint on Rate Your Music, you can see. I thought Trips was their last really great record. I like Boundless, but I like they remain one of the only bands that I will almost always have faith in and that are doing the quote unquote post rock or post metal, the heavy post rock, I guess, that's more slightly traditional sounding anyway, but they're still progressive in some ways. Speaking of post rock, I guess I just kind of shot myself in the foot. Nordic Giants, you could say I'll probably always listen to their records too. Symbiosis, which this came out early in the year, remember, and it was basically my favorite record the first couple weeks of the year, right after it came out. Not as good as some of their previous records, but I don't think they use the samples as prominently on this record. But so that's one reason why I didn't return to it. But even their best stuff is still mood music for me, so that's why it doesn't finish quite as high as some of these other records. And but it's good that they released another album. They've been ever since they've been pretty prolific. If you look at their catalog here, it seems like they've put out more. Since 2015, this is their 3rd album. So I actually would say they have 4 like promises in their catalog if you include those 2 EPs from 20 that I love so much that came out as a hybrid. Let's see. So yeah, Symbiosis from Nordic Giants, number 25. Everything's Raw Data Feel, number 24. I'm going to pause. Let's see if I can do that with this. I don't know if I can, so I may have to pass. Let's just see here. So yeah, everything's Raw Data Feel. I remember when I first heard this. It's a more electronic album compared to their previous records. Yeah, I'm getting some kind of message about something. Let's see here. Sorry, oh, okay. Raw Data Feel, to me, it kind of didn't have a lot of staying power compared to what I thought it would. And I like some of it, but I mean, I've everything were on this streak. Although I kind of feel like the last record, Reanimator, wasn't quite as good as the previous 2, because you have Get to Heaven, which I absolutely adore, and then the one that came after it, To the Something. Those 2 albums were top 10 records for me. A Fever Dream, rather. Yeah, and a lot of people are really liking Raw Data Feel. I mean, the last time I listened to it was probably a couple months ago. So, I mean, maybe 24 isn't being quite fair to it. I know more people got into them for this record and didn't really listen to that many of the records compared to this new record. But I just felt like it was a long record, like a lot of their records, and I only probably felt like that there were those fun, quirky, experimental, like melodic moments in about half the songs. At best, and the flow actually I think was not quite as good as some of their previous records anyway. Number 23, Sloan, power pop band from Canada. The album Steady. My wife's a big fan of Sloan. Listened to this a fair number of times in the car, and kind of concluded like the first half especially, it's got a bunch of songs that are really catchy. And the second half is sort of hit and miss. That track, the opening track is just a super banger. Magical Thinking. If you want to hear a good power pop track, in fact, I'm going to do a Songs of the Year. Don't be surprised where that finishes relatively high. Number 22, Foals, Life Is Yours. I am totally guilty about this. And the keyboard player left from Foals, And Foles had this streak, and every record they've released I've enjoyed to loved. But the first couple singles sounded very poppy and almost not stripped down, but like almost overproduced. But I just gave this thing a go today a couple times, and I'm like, I slept on this record. This is one of a couple records I slept on. Um, and whatever. I would still say that this is not as good. I don't like this album as much as any of their others, but that may change over time. Song 2001 especially. 2 a.m. 2001, Under the Radar, Crest of the Wave. Those 4 or 5, there's at least 5 or 6 tracks on here, despite the kind of slightly change in style, that they're that sort of dancey, energetic, layered music, sometimes psychedelic music they've done. As much as some of it is trying to be super poppy, I kind of need to learn my lesson about sleeping on favorite bands of mine. Even if, like I never listened to The Astonishing from Dream Theater. I only listened to a few songs. I should go back and listen to it, even though it's 2.5 hours. But so yeah, 22, Foles, Life Is Yours. 21, the new King's X album. I did a review on it, of course, 3 Sides of One. It's great to finally have them do another album in 14, whatever it was, just like who was it? The 14-year gap, 0 Hour. It's a record that's got a lot of, like, no songs I don't like, really. It's got a few highlights, but nothing. It doesn't have any, like, classic songs. But I think it works more in terms of the sum of the greater than sum of its parts. Was it Rain? Let It Rain, Festival, and there's 1 or 2 others that that's off the top of my head I'm not remembering. Give It Up. Give It Up. Those would be my kind of, sorry, my voice. Those would be my sort of go-to. Also, All God's Children, which is a little more doomy, kind of, but they've done many songs that are sort of in that style, and they're generally pretty good tracks. It's a Thai song, and there's like 3 or 4 Jerry songs on here, which I like. So, number 21, 3 Sides of One. Ultimately, that record might go up a little bit, because, part of it is I'm just a King's X fanboy, and I even found good songs on Black Like Sunday, another album that I slept on. In that case, it was many years instead of months. Anyway, number 20, Von Hertzen Brothers, Red Alert and the Blue Forest. This is a really long record. Von Hertzen Brothers is a band that I've known about for many years, and I've listened to like some tracks here and there, but never spent time with a full record. And they have their name mentioned frequently among people. And so I gave this finally a go, and I liked a lot of it, although it loses its staying power. The first half, I think, is where I tend to lean toward. Like I said, I don't know how many songs. It's like 16 songs. I guess it suffers a little bit. I don't know, it's only 11. I guess part of it's that a bunch of these tracks are longer. So you got All of a Sudden You're Gone and Peace Patrol. Those are 7 and 10 minutes. And the second song, Blue Forest, the title track, is 9 minutes. I mean, that was my biggest issue. I listened to this like 5 times. And I'm like, I like this. I like a lot of moments here. Some of it's really catchy, energetic, and there's some good instrumentation. But I didn't become attached to it, the Red Alert and the Blue Forest, because of how long it was. But, I'm guilty of not hearing more of their music, and I probably need to go back. Them and like Motorcycle, who I didn't even listen to a new record this year. And, when you have these artists, these bands that release so many albums, it gets to be a little overwhelming to sort of continue to like go back to them when you only have so much time. But, I'm guilty. I know that the guys from Pepe Deluxe are big fans of Von Hertzen Brothers. So, number 19, Disillusion, I Am. Pretty big thumbs up on this record. I'm not sure. I might even like this better than their last record, which was like a return to, like, after many years. They had Aaliyah. Aaliyah is probably still the best thing they ever did. It's like a 12-minute single track, like 2017 or 2008, whenever that was. But yeah, this is very good, atmospheric. You call it prog metal, call it, melodic metal. It's not death metal really, slightly, but yeah, I mean, this is probably sadly, this in some ways the best metal album of the year for me. I didn't find a lot of metal albums this year that I got into. So anyway, Disillusion, I Am, the band, I think they're from Germany, Disillusion. But you look at their catalog and it's just not, it's not that long. This is only the 4th, and we had the Liberation 2019. I probably would put this slightly above the Liberation, but I haven't listened to Liberation since 2019, so I'm guilty of that. But it's good to see them put out another album rather than just have the one-off and be done again, because they had that long gap. Yeah, they're from Germany. Anyway, so that's number, 19. Number 18, Evan Conrad, Denial. This was a breath of fresh air. This is a pretty short record. It's only like 30 minutes. But the songwriting is really good. Some of it's orchestrated, some of it's electronic. Very good vocal arrangements. He had the project Bed of Stars, and he of course sang on the Never Ending White Lights, the last Never Ending White Lights album. But I always been kind of wondering, when is Evan Conrad going to or Bed of Stars going to put out a full length and sort of break through in a way? I don't know. Hopefully this is the start of something more. We'll hear from him. But the only issue I have with this is it's just pretty short. It's only like 7 tracks, but every song I like. And if you don't know Evan Conrad or Bed of Stars, and if you like Hours or the textured art rock, he's one definitely to check out. It's on Spotify anyway. Number 17, Coheed and Cambria's Vax's 2, Window of the Waking Mind. Good album, catchy album. Maybe their catchiest album since Good Apollo 1 when I first said that when it came out. And there's definitely a lot of choruses. The production isn't perfect. It's better than some. And at least it's not quite as long as Vaxis 1, although I remember ultimately liking Vaxis 1. But some of it sounds a little like mall pop, but I mean it's sort of in a good way. I don't feel guilty for being a fan of that. I mean, if I went with highlights, there were a lot of singles on this thing before it came out. This thing would actually load. I would go with Comatose, Blood, The Liars Club, Ladders of Supremacy. That's really progressive. That's probably the best track on that, and the last 3 tracks, Windows of the Waking Mind. I had this album in my top 10 for a little while this year. I don't know if I just kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. I had to be in the mood to listen to Coheed, but among Coheed's catalog, it definitely would be in the upper half for me at this point. So I'm really happy. I mean, maybe I'm putting it a little bit lower than I should have, but whatever. That speaks more to the year than the actual album itself. I need to get a physical copy, although I was a little weary to buy the other record on vinyl because Vaxis 1, there were a lot of people who reported it sounded really bad, like really hissy. So I don't know. I might just buy the CD. Anyway, number 16, Marillion, An Hour Before It's Dark. Sacrilege being my favorite band. Sierra Leone is still my favorite part of this. I like it. I don't know. Part of it was, I felt like it was not as good as Fear, and it didn't have as many sort of earworms that I used to always get with Marillion. And of course, the way they released it, I didn't have as much of an issue. But Be Hard on Yourself is another highlight for me. But I would say that Reprogram the Gene and Care are a little spotty. I mean, they those 2 pieces, and so unfortunately, I gotta be a completely honest fanboy. I'm gonna be more objective with my favorite band because I know so much of their music. I like it still, but I don't find it to be a masterpiece. I don't even find it to be as good as Fear at this point. But maybe over time I will. I don't know. I've had a number of Marillion albums where I went back to them and I felt better, and there's been a few cases where I went back to them and I felt worse. So this album, I would guess I probably could only go up if it goes anywhere. Number 15, Archive, Call to Arms, and Angels. This is a really long album, but for whatever reason, and I put it on when I was driving back and forth to work, so I had time to kill. I always felt like, I didn't get bored with it, and it's just like it's a little bit like the Cats in Space situation too, which is weird because Archive have released a number of albums where I like moments in them, but I don't find myself wanting to go back to them. But this album, I found myself going back to more and more. It's like, again, they're a band that has a lot of records. You look at 17 songs. It's really. But I just, I appreciate when Archive are good, they're really good. It's just, I need to kind of think of, I want to listen to Archive. And so that's why it ended up 15. It could have ended up much lower, even if it was shorter, it could have probably been higher even. Anyway, Pure Reason Revolution, number 14, Above Cyrus. I like this album. I bought it, of course. I'm a Pure Reason Revolution fanboy. I've been a fan since, late in 2005 when the Cautionary Tales from the Brave EP came out. In fact, I didn't even have that on the EP list, which is kind of weird. But it was mostly songs that ended up on The Dark Third anyway. One of the versions. But this album is probably their heaviest album. the highlight track. The highlight track for me still is the, what is it? Scream Sideways, the 10-minute piece. Um, New Kind of Evil, Our Prism. It doesn't have any songs I don't like, but I do find like the riffs kind of get a little repetitive, and it's so guitar oriented. And I think Chloe also is not featured. This could have been in my top 10 easily because I love this band. But I actually find the previous record, Eupnia, which was in my top 3 records in 2020, is better, having revisited both of them. But, I don't know. I'm still happy that we got this record. I still like a lot of it. It's just, it had some other elements, and some of the elements that I love about previous Pure Reason Revolution albums weren't as prominent, I guess is the best way to put it. But anyway, number 14, Pure Reason Revolution's Above Cyrus. Number 13, Porcupine Tree's Closure / Continuation. Now, I'll preface, but this is number 13, and that's partly due, that includes the bonus tracks. So I think the bonus tracks that were issued with one of the editions, let's see here, made this album better. It probably would have been lower. I didn't listen to it that much, but those bonus tracks, although not all those instrumentals, I'm talking about Population, Never Have, Love in the Past Tense. Those 3, I think it is. And there might be one other one that was in the bonus tracks. Anyway, this is interesting the way this is. It's like a DVD. I like this, but I kind of feel like it's kind of, the sound is relatively predictable. It's and I'm actually, having heard this now, I'm glad we got it, of course, still, because I am a big Porcupine Tree fan, but I'm more intrigued by Steven Wilson's solo music. If this is the kind of music we're going to get from Porcupine Tree, I don't know. They may do something different again. I know a lot of this stuff was not new music, not newly written music. So, I mean, if I went with highlights, I would say, like, I think it was Dignity. Dignity, yeah, is my favorite track on the standard edition. Heard Calling. Harridan is decent. But some of this stuff is definitely sort of in absentia, Deadwing. Some of it really channels that period of time, which is kind of predictable since you have Gavin Harrison back. You, of course, don't have Colin Edwin. Say what you will, but I don't know. I know a lot of people, this is their album of the year, and they're just Porcupine Tree fanboys or fangirls that have been pining for a new Porcupine Tree album for so long. And so I can't be upset about it. I still like it. I'll definitely go back to it still. That's why I finished this high. But I think what really did it for me is when I heard those extra tracks, I'm like, well, put some of the best songs in with those bonus tracks that were probably as good, if not better. I don't know if there's another version on here that has the bonus tracks that doesn't have the DVD information. I mean, I may seek out the vinyl at some point. I like it better than Fear of a Blank Planet. I don't know if I'd put it up necessarily above. Yeah, here it is. These are the 3, yeah. I found this is like a little bit like a nil recurring thing. But I like the standard version of Continuation, Closure and Continuation more than Fear of a Blank Planet. Whereas I like nil recurring more than Fear of a Planet. Anyway, that's number 13. All right, we'll get into the top 10, kind of wind down this epic video, of course, like it always is for albums of the year. Number 12, Cloud Cult's Metamorphosis. An album I think is better than the sum of its parts. But the criticism I have for it is it sort of has a lot of sort of more acoustic-y ballads. And I'm not part of the Patreon, which I really should be, because they released a lot of songs over the last few years since, this is the first album since 2016, which I love, The Seeker. And I'm a Cloud Cult fanboy, but only One Way Out of a Hole, or One Way Out of a Hole is still like the sort of my favorite track on here. But then you have a few others here. Lady of the Hill, Song from Oblivion, Bigger Than Me, What Would You Do? The first half of it is a little bit, I wouldn't call it slow, but it's just stripped down from a band that's, I've always thought of, at least in the last 7 or 8 albums they've done, most of their career, is known for their layers and their textures and their chamber ensemble, their instrumentation. It's a little more stripped down of an album. I don't say it's their songwriter exactly, but it's still well composed enough, and it's like, especially the second half, a lot of those songs bring in new elements. And so I like this album a lot. I just don't I don't like it as much as, like, I think I even like Love maybe a little bit more, but it's not as good as The Seeker or some of the other records I absolutely adore, but it's still a good record. Number 11, Warpaint, Radiate Like This. Their first record in, I think, what is it, 6 years. Heads Up was the last one. I really enjoy this. It's a very great, moody record. I mean, is it that different than some of their other records? No. I mean, it's dream, psychedelic dream pop rock, you could call it psychedelic pop. I mean, with a little post rock elements. But there's something about when the composition works, it's like less is more, and it puts you in the like a really therapeutic mood. I just get won over by them. The self-titled album is the only one that never really didn't do that much for me. Although I think I should go back to that record. I really adore this record. I mean, do I have highlights? Yeah, I do. Off the top of my head, I don't know any. Stevie was one. That was one of the singles they released. Trouble, Proof, Melting. I just felt like, and Champion, the first track, is a great way to kick this album off. I just felt like this album I want to listen to the whole thing, and it just never. I always thought, well, this is kind of boring. No, it's not. This is kind of Warpaint's thing. I mean, would I want more songs like a New Song or like Elephants or something like that, or the single off of The Fool that was so catchy? Yes, but they're not a pop band, even though they can write pop songs at points. What is it, Undertow? Yeah, they're not gonna write 4 or 5 tracks like Undertow or New Song on these records. And this album is almost clearly more about their mood, and but it works. It totally works for me. Number 10, now we're in the top 10. Umphrey's McGee's Asking for a Friend. This like the Foles album, I slept on until a couple weeks ago, and I've really been enjoying this record. It's got almost like a yacht rock element at points, but it's a consistent record. It's kind of a long record. You can see they haven't even put the artwork up. It came out the same day, so I don't even have the track list here. It came out the same day as the Deer Hunters' Anthemi. So it's like, well, what album am I going to listen to? Obviously. Well, you're looking at just the track list here. There's a song called it's like the 5th song, New Wings. That one's really won me over. But I'm still getting familiar with this record, but I felt like when I was on Spotify, I think I hearted over half the songs on here. It's their best record to me since Similar Skin from 2014. Umphrey's McGee is a weird band because they put out many records I kind of got bored with. And between there, it's like they're hit and miss. But it's almost like a lesson that, well, it doesn't matter. You still should listen to them because they may be putting on a record you'll like. So that's number 10. Number 9, Team Me, the band from Norway, who's very Mew-like. This one, while I don't think it has any songs as good as some of their best songs from their previous 2 records, it might be slightly better from a beginning to end standpoint. It has some of the, energetic gang vocal choruses, it's been this has been 8 years. They broke up and got back together again. I know a lot of this reminded me of not Minus the Bear, but there's another band that I kind of thought, oh, that kind of sounds like this, Into the Wild, High Street, like Local Natives a little bit, or like Mute Math, Something the Making Part 1 and Part 2, Song for a Drummer, that's another highlight. I mean, this was in my mid-season list for a reason. I bought the CD. I really want to get it on vinyl. They're a band that's just as consistent where I can listen to almost any song from them. I'm going to find something I like. And this, again, I mean, how is this going to be catalog? Just taking a look on Rate Your Music. You got, it's actually, even though the rating numbers are lower, it's actually rated higher than Blind as Night, and I love Blind as Night, and actually rated higher than both their records. So, this is definitely a record I'm going to be listening to regularly, and that's why it ended up number 9 on my list. Number 8, The Warning, not the debut album from The Warning, but this is their first, this is a breakthrough album, you could say. The trio of sisters from Monterrey, Mexico, doing sort of heavy, hard rock, at times progressive, sort of like, not like Tool, more like Muse, or like, I don't know, they remind me of a few different bands, but they put out an EP last year that I thought was really good. First thing that they put out since I was introduced to them. And this has all the songs from that EP, plus a bunch of new songs. And I think the songs work even better within this record. And all the songs are in caps and everything. It's just interesting. But I mean, Choke, Animosity. You know, that what was the EP was called Mayday, and they mentioned Mayday. I want to say, was it in Animosity? I think it was. Anyway, the Warpaint fans are gonna crucify me if I get a lot of facts wrong. So I hope I'm not getting facts wrong. But I felt like the new songs, like Kool Aid Kids, 23, was it Revenant? Those songs all were good too. I mean, I haven't gone back to it for a while. It came out in the summer. It was like June 24th. But I remember liking this. I posted something on Twitter about it, and I think this is an album that the large like heavy rock metal crowd has at least found out about. They're opening for a lot of well-known bands, 3 Days Grace, and they've who are they opening? They opened for one of their heroes, Hailstorm, everything like that. But I think the progressive rock scene, progressive metal scene, could like them more than they've discovered. So they still need to check this album out. They have two previous albums, which there's more acoustic elements in their previous albums, but their two previous albums are actually pretty good too. So anyway, Warpaint, Air, not the Air, all in caps. Number 8. Number 7, Major Parkinson's Valessa, Chapter 1, Velvet Prison. It's a pretty long record. Major Parkinson, the first album they put out since 2018's was 18, I think it was 17, 18, Black Box. I like this. There's a lot of synth pop in it, and I know some of the fans didn't like that, but I actually think the synth pop pieces work. And it's a concept album. I think most of their albums are concept albums, but I can't deny that, you know, as much as it's a long record, I love this band's sound. You know, they haven't put out a record, although I haven't really listened to their first record, but every album I've listened to I've liked to loved, the borderline loved. It has Jonah, which the previous version of Jonah I think is a little better. That's one of the arguments, but songs like Saturday Night, and Live Forever, those two they were earlier singles. I don't really consider them really cheesy. I think the melodies and sort of major key and sort of the poppy element to them with the synths is fine. There's a little bit of auto-tune in a couple of the songs later. And I talked about this on a previous video a few months ago. But this is a record that I still need to listen to more, though, because it's a long record. I don't know how long it is. It's like over an hour. Yeah, it's an hour, exactly an hour. So I've listened to it in gaps where I'll be listening to it and I get interrupted or I'm going somewhere in the car. So, but as a whole, yes. I mean, I enjoy enough of this record. There's one song toward the end I found to be a little too cheesy. I want to say it was the second to last track, Fantasia Me Now. That's about the only song that I had any issue with, really, as long as this record, as long as I've heard this record. I think the singer, John, this might be his best performance on any record. And, you know, of course, he had a health scare last week after one of their concerts. He's doing better, thankfully. I hope that, you know, this is a one-time deal with that. And, you know, I think this is his best performance as a singer, as he stretches himself. And you have the female singer, too, on a few tracks. But anyway, number 7, Major Parkinson, Valessa, Velvet Prison. Number 6, The Deer Hunters, Antimai. Why this isn't higher? I guess it's partly to do with my sort of standards for the Deer Hunter. I love them. Lifetime member. This is a completely new, you know, concept, universe, you want to call it, premise that he's writing an album in, Casey and the band, the rings and everything like that. I think my go-to still remains the first song, first single they release. Was it Luxury? Yeah, the 9-minute Luxury. That it's so catchy, the earworm on that. You know, I mean, the rest of it has its moments. They're stylistically, they change. Part of my issue with is that it feels like it's sort of, yeah, it's like he's lifting songs from different records, and it doesn't really end. The ending doesn't, the song Tower doesn't seem to end really like a closing track, which it's a little bit like Act 1 in that sense. But I don't know. I mean, I listened to it. I love it. I listened to it many times, and I felt like, yeah, I like this little jazzy part. It's more jazzy at points, funky at points. Some of these are a little more ballady. And the premise is an interesting concept about sort of society mirroring the different classes of society in a fictional world. I guess part of it is, I mean, this may grow on me over time, even being number 6. I'm wondering what will come next in this whole, the universe of the Indigo Child. I like the EP, that the soundtrack piece he released in 2021 a lot too. That the title track, the Indigo Child, and everything. But the theme. Anyway, it's still number 6 for me. Maybe I have too high standards. It was in my top couple records for much of the year, anyways. Number 5, Midlakes for the Sake of Bethel Woods, a complete unexpected comeback from Midlake. It's they're sort of a folky, textured psychedelic prog band of sorts, art rock band. I love the use of piano. I love the sort of dreamy elements. They capture a lot of what they did on the Van Ocupanther album, but did more with it in some ways. It's a little more progressive on this album. I'll confess though, I listened to it a lot the first couple of months it came out. I haven't really returned to it. I bought it on vinyl and everything like that. I need to kind of still go back to it, but this is a winner for me. I think this is the best thing Midlake's ever done, actually. So number 5, Midlakes, for the Sake of Bethel Woods. Number 4, The Family Crest, The War Act 2. You can see my number 3, number 2, number 1. But I could just go over that. So you have, I'm not really, the countdown didn't work as a reveal. Number 3, Toehiders, I have little to no memory of these memories. Number 2, Queen of the Night for Dur Robbins, and number 1, The Loser from Gospel. Speaking about Family Crest, The War Act 2, it's it's a lot in the same. There's there's 2 or 3 just sort of earworms. Again, I don't have my memorization of all the track names, but Hearts on Fire, and I want to say there's one other just total has a theme that I never get out of my head. It's a great record from beginning to end. There was a lot of hope and expectations for this record. I think it lived up to them to an extent, but I think the style didn't change as much as I kind of anticipated it would. It still kind of has a little stigma to it to me, in that it came out on the day that I found my cat had to be put down, and so I'll never forget that, unfortunately. And so, I mean, whether it's fair or not, but they're a weird band in that they have those songs I love, but they also like to do little quiet, slow pieces, which I know there was one track in here that I felt like should have been at the end. I think it's You Are the Beginning. I think that's the one. That should have been the last track on this album. Oh, Pride, that's the one which they did the video from a few years ago. That's the other real earworm. So you take Hearts on Fire and Pride, those are 2 of the best 10 songs the band's ever done. But yeah, there's still a lot of chamber rock in here. A lot of, percussive moments, a lot of sort of dynamics. One song does sound like the Deer Hunter. I think it's Baby You've Got Your Legs. There's a part that sounds like one of the songs from Act 5. But anyway, that's the Family Crest at the War Act 2. Number 3, Toehider. I have little to no memory of these memories. 147-minute track that I'm still digesting. But there's just so much packaged in on this record. The styles it explored, even the doom metal, and some of the traditional modern prog vocals that I don't have. I just, I don't mind the fact that guys got a 5 or 6 octave range, and it's like from Jimi Hendrix to Jethro Tull to some of the catchiness and some of these vocal exercises he does are probably what the biggest reason why, and sort of bringing some of the theme backs. It packs a lot of punch, and it packs a lot of stuff to digest and to take in and to really appreciate on this album. Even though it's kind of a mouthful, I have little to no memory of these memories. I give a big thumbs up to this. I need to buy a physical copy. I'm planning to do that hopefully on Friday, which will be Bandcamp Friday and everything like that. Toehider, Michael Mills from Australia, who's also been on some Arian albums. I need to listen to more of his albums now. Anyway, number 2, Dur Robbins, Queen of the Night. Heard the songs with the film. It's a soundtrack to the film. It's got maybe my favorite song of the year in Enchante. Totally catchy, energetic, vaudevillian, almost cabaret earworm on that track. As I went through my reviews like a week ago, I mean, there's the track listing on here. There's like a lot of these songs are just very much the kind of theme of the film, but they're not. It's not so melodramatic. Yeah, and I love Dur Robbins. I find this almost on par, if not on par, with their other records. So, number 1, The Loser from Gospel. This But did not come out of nowhere. Because I heard about rumblings about this a few years ago, and it's like, was it ever going to come out? And then it came out, after they got together and did that song Tango, which is on this song, on this album, which, Enchanté or Tango, that may be the other best song of the year. I don't know. I'm going to do a songs list hopefully soon and be able to share that. But, yeah, I mean, this thing, it's, psychedelic progressive rock with post-hardcore elements, or, progcore, call it, it flows really well. It is a mood record, and so I can't say I've listened to it 80 times or anything like that, but it's a breath of fresh air to have gospel put out new music after their long breakup. And you figure they had Moon's Dead World came out in 2005. I got into that around 2009, 2010. But at that point they were done. They had the Tango single, and I was like, I love Tango. I want more of this. And we figured, we may not ever get anything from gospel again. But yeah, this album's a trip. And then you actually tack on their single, which I didn't even really put that as the EP. I forgot to include that actually on my EPs. I'll have to fix this when I publish this. The Magic whatever volume 2 or whatever. I kind of look at that as part of this album. It was going to be part of the album. They decided to take it off. It's a weird name. MVDM, the Magic Volume 1, Magic Volume of Dark Matter, or the Magic Volume of Dark Matter. You include that, although I'll admit that I was more, like, I heard the live version. There's a live version on video. I think I would have liked this more than I did, but I still like enough moments. It's mostly instrumental, this extra 21-minute track that was included with, or was released like a few months later. But yeah, I mean, this is, not everyone's gonna like gospel and The Loser, but I think it's foolish to not regard it. And there's people in the progressive rock scene that won't even give this a shit because they can't stand hardcore vocals. It's interesting. This was like number one. This is in the top 3 or 4 records at one point when it came out, and it's dropped all the way down to number 38. Of course, let's show you what's number 1. I'm sure it's still number 1. Of course, Black Country New Road. Hellfire from if you look at the number, this is indicative of Rate Your Music. But so yeah, that's it. That's my list. I think 2022 was a very good year for music. I think clearly, to me, as an overall year, it's a better. I enjoyed. I got into more music, more albums this year than the last 2 years. Maybe even 2019 in some ways. But we'll see how often and part of it is a testament of a year is how often you go back to them. So I'm going to try to do a song list, which, spoiler alert, will be songs from most of these records and some other records potentially. I'll try to do that later. Just give me your top 10, top 20. Criticize me for not knowing the song names. Do it, that's what this stuff for. Please give a comment, like, and subscribe. I really appreciate all the people that have subscribed. Appreciate people seeing my videos. But yeah, I'd love to see other people's lists, and I'll be looking forward to watching, the videos from all the other YouTubers and all the lists on the sites. Maybe I'll do a reaction to some of them. But your Nathan on Shuffles and the Prog Corner and Notes Reviews and the Prog Report, and Similitude of Prog, and anyone else. I don't know if Brent's gonna do one. Anyone else who does the end of year lists. I wonder if Fulton will do one. I always look forward to his list. I really look forward to that. And here's just my list for the year. But again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.